Hi guys. Before we proceed to this video, we've got something very important to share with you. Neoliberalism, Inequality and Authoritarianism by Professor John V. Kofis is available for purchase. You can order it directly from the publisher Little French eBooks or through Amazon.
Hello everyone, welcome to a teaser video, an introductory session on the contradictions of the neoliberal economy, which have led the United States in its twilight, in its decline in the last 40 years or so, to the present of essentially using economic nationalism through tariffs universally applied to the entire world to in order to remanufacture, reshore the companies that have left and secure, that's the claim at least, and secure lost jobs, roughly 6 million lost manufacturing jobs, high-paying jobs, and to reclaim the preeminent economic position in the world, which has rapidly been withering away in the last 30 years or so, as China has been replacing the United States as the world's preeminent economic power, essentially the core of the capitalist world economy transitioning from the United States to China, with, of course, China enjoying the support of the BRICS members behind it. Now, the longer video, analytical video, which I have done, essentially deals with what are the fundamental causes for a society's decline and the contradictions of capitalism, which for which the elites, the political class, as well as the business class, the socioeconomic class, are responsible. They are responsible for this. Now, the fact is that throughout history, the patterns, not the specific incidents of policy, not the specific policies, not the events, but the patterns of growth or in the phase of ascendancy of a country, maturity and then decline are very similar. And invariably, in the phase of decline, most countries, I would say the larger countries, not the smaller ones, and I'll explain briefly what this means. The larger countries are essentially responsible for their own decline, although invariably they try to distract the public and the world that someone else is responsible, that the fault does not lie with the political class, the state making policy decisions, as well as the socioeconomic class behind the state policies, which presumably benefits the socioeconomic class. From ancient Persia and ancient Athens in the 5th century BC, with ancient Persia declining and Athens, the Athenian Empire, rising, but then the Athenian Empire experiencing decline as a result of a protracted war against the Lacedaemonian League, the Spartans, in other words, toward the end of the 5th century, to the British Empire. I'm going to jump ahead to the Roman Empire. Let me include the Roman Empire. To the Roman Empire in the 5th century AD, to the British Empire in the late 19th, early 20th century, and now the United States. All of these large societies, which enjoyed enormous greatness at the zenith of their power. In the case of the United States, by the way, the zenith of American power um, was experienced essentially during the Truman era, not because the United States did not advance much more technologically and industrially in terms of securing far greater GDP growth and uh, greater greater middle class and so forth in the decades ahead from Eisenhower to Nixon. But the fact is, the US experienced the zenith of its power during the Truman era because the US was a true superpower insofar as everyone else on the planet did not have the kind of economic power that the United States had, combined with the military power that the United States had, considering it was the first country in the world to develop both the atomic bomb and the hydrogen bomb. Now, the question, of course, is why is it that the elites, socioeconomic elites, and the political elites are responsible, and of course, institutional elites go along with this, that is, everyone from academia to media go along with this um, uh, policy, a set of policies. I say when I say this, with a set of policies which are based on mythology, are contradictory, and seem to backfire. And in fact, not only do they not lead toward a regeneration of greatness, to use Trump's uh, term, the golden age of America, when in fact it's the gilded age, the late 19th century. Yeah, there is no golden age. It's decline. And in the longer video, I explain that in much greater detail, but I'll give you just a couple of examples. The elites insist that all of this is done for the best. For whose best? Obviously, the contradictory policies that are pursued under the assumption that they will benefit society. Who is benefiting within society? The Romans did the same thing, by the way. They claimed that it was for the greatness of Rome, the greatness of America, make America great again. There is no greatness in what the U.S. is doing. It is caught in the contradictions of the neoliberal system, which is based on globalization and free trade on the one hand, and then on the other, and this is where it gets a bit more complex, the fact that the core of the capitalist world economy has been shifting slowly in the last 3.5 decades or so, 4 decades, from the United States, from the transatlantic region to East Asia, is with China at the core, and to recapture the glory going back to the Truman era, the United States is reverting to economic nationalism and military Keynesianism. That is, this is going back to Truman. They're the ones who started military Keynesianism, namely pouring surplus capital, which doesn't exist anymore for the US, by the way, because the US has chronic budgetary and balance of payments, or what we call current account deficits, and a debt that's growing very rapidly in percentage, as a percentage of the GDP of the United States and relative to China. So what we have here are desperate measures to recapture the glory that is no more, rather than a rational approach to re-examine the model of political economy which led to this, and to question the assumptions that the socioeconomic and political elites are making about what would make America great again. What has been done, and this is not, by the way, I want to make it very clear, this is not about Trump, this is not about the GOP. The fact is, when I say political elites, I mean in the US, the two-party system, which is the uniparty essentially, both parties have embraced the same goals of military Keynesianism and neoliberalism, which, by the way, just in case, just a brief explanation of neoliberalism, starts in the late 70s. Carter begins to experiment with some of these policies of privatization, deregulation, anti-labor policies, corporate welfare shifting from the social safety net to corporate welfare, subsidizing corporations, reducing their taxes. All of this is established, institutionalized during the Reagan era. And then the Democrats, Clinton continued this, really accelerated. Bush, number two, George W. Bush continued it. And then, of course, Obama, who a lot of people don't associate him, unfortunately, with neoliberalism and military Keynesianism, he was full force into this. And then, of course, Trump going a step farther to the far right, embracing economic nationalism, because he realized, and the people behind him, a certain group of dogmatic billionaires, far right wing billionaires, as people know, those of you who look at the media, and you know that there are billionaires behind Trump. He's not doing this on his own, although he has profited and his family has profited from all this. But essentially, they are doing this to preserve the privileges of the capitalist class and to make sure that the United States remains in that preeminent core position of the capitalist world economy, which contains the seeds of its own contradictions within it, by the way. Now, let me just, because this is just a teaser session, and I invite all of you to watch the longer video, let me just point out, by the way, that the proof is really in the results. We have to look at empirical data, and we cannot be swayed by vacuous rhetoric by politicians or far right wing elements that argue that economic nationalism is somehow the salvation of the United States and the working class. The fact is, Trump tried this once before, not at this radical phase. He tried this in 2018. The result was overall the United States did not gain lost manufacturing jobs. The 6 million I spoke about, that statistics, some statistics indicate roughly 6 million lost jobs in manufacturing. Neither did we see, as many, by the way, chief executive officers, CEOs have pointed out. The latest was the CEO of Eli Lilly, the world's largest pharmaceutical company, who said, look, you're not going to get companies, American companies, reshoring. You may get a few, and you might get some companies, U.S. companies, investing here and there a little bit more in the United States, but you're not going to shift a U.S. economy, which has been service-oriented for decades, into a manufacturing one, going back to the period of the Eisenhower, Kennedy, and Johnson presidencies. And the Eli Lilly CEO would absolutely say he's absolutely right. The U.S. has been, if you look at the division of labor in the United States from the Department of Labor Statistics, what you find is a service economy. How do you shift to that? Go back to the manufacturing when this is capitalism, by the way, has always been international. It's a global economy, well integrated into the world. That's very difficult and really impossible. In the US, the toothpaste is out of the tube. China is the world's largest manufacturing country, and it is attracting increasingly more and more capital and global South members, strengthening the base of the Chinese core economy. Now, in the longer video, and I don't want to go on with this too much longer, but in the longer video, and I invite you to look at that, I point out that there are all sorts of contradictions of what they promised the US administration and its supporters promise, that they're only interested in job creation and wealth creation. When you look at the results of the first 2 days after Trump implemented tariffs, there were trillions of dollars lost in world stock markets, including mostly from the United States. Trillion. This is a loss for many middle class and, of course, upper middle class and wealthy, because 61% of the American people are invested directly or indirectly in the stock market, especially through retirement accounts. So this is empirical evidence that's incontrovertible. It's indisputable. To argue otherwise, that somehow there is the golden age is coming, I want to make one point here about the golden, well, because people, when Trump administration officials were hit with this news, with this question rather, how do you explain the massive losses, the period that Trump has been in office in the stock market, and um, capitalists themselves pulling money out and pouring it into other markets? And the answer, well, in the long term, this will all work out. But people don't live. We don't live in the long term. We daily. We pay our rent daily, monthly, and the bills. As the great English economist John Maynard Keynes noted in the long, because they were making the same arguments back in the 1930s to him, in the long run, he noted, we'll all be dead. So this idea of long run is a luxury that the vast majority of the population doesn't have. The only people that have long term luxury are the people with big pockets, with the billionaires and the multimillionaires. The rest of the population doesn't have that kind of time horizon. I invite you to look at the longer video. I ask you to write comments, ask questions, and by all means join this channel. It's an educational channel with various topics of interest. Thank you very much.